Hello, everyone. It is that Weems guy, and we are here for another episode. My apologies for not having one last week, but work got in the way. Um, w- Almost weren't able to do this episode tonight. Um, Unfortunately, woke up to the news this morning that a local cop buddy had passed away from natural causes at much too soon of an age. I have an affiliation with this agency, and so I immediately sent word to them that I'm available to cover shifts and stuff as needed. Um, Doug was a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful person. Um, Very sarcastic, crazy sense of humor. Um, just a really good guy. I've been trying to think about how I actually met him because it just seems like I've always known him. And as I'm seeing, the whole local cop Facebook community blow up today, everybody expressing their condolences and stuff for him. It's just good to see that he touched so many people because he was truly, truly a wonderful person. And it's going to be weird that Doug's gone. Um, I truly hope that many shenanigans are carried out in his honor because Doug was one to enjoy such things. And gonna miss you, buddy. Gonna miss you. Unfortunately, my area also lost an officer killed in the line of duty this week on a call. A young 24-year-old officer responded to a suspicious person call, and according to the press conferences, he walked up to make contact with the individual who immediately drew a pistol and shot the officer, and the officer died of his wounds. I did not know him, but that doesn't diminish his loss. His wife is now going on without him, and it sucks. It really, really, really does. Joining tonight, because he lost the coin toss today, is Eric Gelhaus.
Hello, all.
All right. Eric, how you doing tonight?
All right. Did I lose the coin toss, or was I just the only one that answered on
I,
Super Bowl Sunday?
I think when I put the message out into our little chat group of who could do play podcast tonight, everybody else took a step back, and you were left out there.
That might be it.
Yeah,
Probably more accurate.
yeah. All right. We have talked on this show numerous, numerous, numerous times. Um, the whole thing comes up: competition versus application versus whichever language you want to call it. Um, but at like the different speeds and what's good and what's fast and everything. And Bob Vogel put out a very interesting video this week, and Bob is one that can speak to both sides because he's a grandmaster, a distinguished master, and he's a cop. And I know you saw the video. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I found it interesting. So for those who haven't seen the video, Vogel's like 8 to 10 yards, shoots 8 rounds, strong hand only. The first time he runs it, he's pretty intent, pretty well, he comes out and says he's trying to shoot this with seeing the sights every time and getting all A zone hits. Second time he runs it, he's willing to accept C's. So he's A's and C's, and he shoots it quicker. I think it goes from like 0.41 splits to like 0.29, 0.3 something splits when he runs it the second time, and he does. I think he has 3 C's in it. What what was interesting about it was he was comparing the shooting at competition speed and what people will accept versus shooting at what has
Mhm.
been traditional LE standards, with the goal of everything going into the A zone or the highest point scoring area. Um, I think he explains it well, but I think he also kind of points out one of the things that some folks have been talking about. Right, it's not necessarily go slow. It's you have to get the hits to end the fight.
Right.
Um, and I will say, and I think this kind of supports his position, even his C zone hits were high. And as you and I were talking, Lee, before you hit the record button, shooting a state LE match last year where they were just doing time plus scoring, conservatively 80% of the hits I saw on targets were from the A stamped in the middle of the A zone down. They weren't
Mhm.
throwing hits high. if things were leaving the A zone, it was going low into C and D land. Vogel wasn't doing that. He was keeping everything on at least even with the upper half of the A zone.
Yeah. For one, I was glad that Bob put this out because, one of the typical things is that when we start having this discussion is you get from the competition side, well, you're not a grandmaster, so you don't have an opinion on this because you can't do it, so don't say it. Um, you know, Bob's I got to see the sites to confirm it, so I guarantee I get this a hit. I think his splits are like at 0.41,
Yeah, I think it's what.
and that matches what I've seen in my own experiments. Now, Bob's a grandmaster; he's a distinguished master, USPSA, IDPA. I'm not. Never
Nope.
even shot it. Never even shot a USPSA match. Don't know. I'm kind of on the EX master line. I'm mastering some EX and some IDPA. Um, the difference is that when Bob decides to flip the switch, he can give you the quarter second splits.
Yep.
I can flip the switch and I can give you 0.31s, 0.32s, sometimes getting down below zero point 0.3. But consistently, my best is where I can get hits is 0.31 or so. Um, so in that run that he did, he's saying, all right, so I can guarantee I gotta get my hits. So then it becomes, in my mind, which one is better? And I think it depends. If I'm playing a game, the target math might work out that accepting a few C's and ripping it is better. But if I'm trying to stop a bad guy doing bad guy things, and I'm also legally responsible for the rounds that are going down range, I think that I got to guarantee for, 0.4 split probably might be the best approach.
And there has to be the ability to stop
Yep.
and deal with movement and deal with changes in the environment, right? And we've had that discussion.
Yeah.
I almost ad nauseum.
Yeah.
Um, I think it was interesting that he went out and did it, right? But it was
Yeah.
static target, strong hand only.
Yeah.
It's interesting, right? At
Yeah.
least it's a good point. I saw the video probably within about an hour of it being posted, and I don't follow
Yeah.
Vogel, so somebody else had already put it out.
Yeah.
I grabbed it, shared it, and I've noticed in about the last 24 hours, it's picked up a
Yeah.
bunch of traction in other groups and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. It hit my feed like almost immediately, like, hey, Bob, posted this video. And it was probably about 2 days later that it started popping up with other people sharing it and commenting on it. And I think I sent the link to you right after
It
I
might have been.
saw it.
I saw
Yeah.
it from somebody like, and it was
Yeah.
an hour old when I saw it, and so I
Yeah.
shared it right away over on the business page.
Yeah. I know I put it in our chat group and I put it in another chat group that you're also in. So it may have been one of
That
those.
could have been where I got
Yeah.
it.
Like I said, a couple of days later, I started seeing it show up all over Facebook and people talking about it, but nobody is really talking about it from the standpoint that you and I are
Yeah.
right now. Um, 2 weeks ago, I was teaching an academy class, and one of the cadets Googled me and saw that he shot competition. If word got around the other cadets, he shot competition. So when like all of the instructors get on the line, the demo, the qual, the gaggle comes and stands behind me to watch and see how it compares. And so I've got a choice to make at that point. Do I rip it
Yeah.
or do I guarantee all what would be for us all 10-point hit, but I'll use A and C uh, for the sake of this conversation. And I made the decision I'm going to rip it. Now, I am having some hand issues with my support hand. I had surgery on it late last year, and then I injured it doing something stupid at the end of the year, and I'm still recovering from this. But here nor there. Um, there is a string in our course of fire that's for the cadets. That is basically you have 18 seconds. Starts from a low ready. I know 18.
We had this
Ridiculous.
conversation earlier today.
I'm sorry, I'm having to laugh. To quote Tom Givens or to paraphrase him, Uh, he always says that the number one injury for firearms instructors is throwing out their back when lowering the bar. And so when I read the new course of fire, I walked into my supervisor's office and said, I need to make a first report of injury. And he's like, for what? And I said, I just threw my back out reading this course of fire. So it's 7 yard line from a low ready. They have 18 seconds to fire. Now we know the terminology of box drill, but that's two to the body on one target, two to the body on the second target, headshot on the second target, headshot on the first target.
So 6 rounds.
6 rounds, reload, rinse, and repeat. And they're giving them 18 seconds for this course of fire. Um, I finished before most of the rest of the line got to their reload. And I'm not being braggadocious here as I ripped it and go. I pushed a couple of shots, just like you were just talking about, high just into the C zone.
Yeah.
Our target doesn't have an A and C zone, but just to keep the terminology thing. And so when you score my target, it was not a perfect 300. Now, if we were doing points per second, I blow the rest of the guys away.
Yeah.
But if you look at the score sheets in the book, I didn't have the highest score.
Right.
And, then that leads to say we have one cadet that shot two 300s. They shoot the course until they get two qualifying scores. One of our cadets has two qualifying scores with 300s. Um, you know, now do the cadets look at, well, look, Johnny over there outshot the instructors. And so it's kind of a question in my mind is do I make sure I get all tens or A's whenever I'm in front of them, or do I rip it?
Depends on how it's scored.
Yeah.
Right. So um, doing the editing thing at American Cop the last couple of
Yeah.
years, we've sponsored the law enforcement education program at SHOT, which
Yeah.
I've ended up doing presentations.
Yeah.
This year I did one on trends in the training community, and part of that was on firearm stuff and how competitive shooting, performance shooting,
Yeah.
starting to make its way in, which is not a bad thing.
Yeah.
But what I did was I took the current qual course from my old agency and went out and shot it 3 times, photographed it, ran the numbers. And the course is set up to be run on a straight par time, but I ran it, like I said, on the par time, ran it on time plus
Yeah.
points down, then ran it on hit factor time.
Yeah.
Right. You'll hear people talk about like hit factor, you should be like 8 point something or higher. Right. My hit factor was like 4.5. But because it's a whole bunch of different strings of fire, there's
Mm-hmm.
draw time in there, and a lot of the stuff has movement. Yeah, okay, I'm sniveling. The time plus, right? I was down 4 points on the whole thing because rather than shooting it on an A upper half of the C zone scoring, I shot it on an IDPA target where I was
Mm-hmm.
trying to hit the down zero.
Yeah.
But where it was interesting was on the par time. And the 25-yard stage, which starts it, and the 15-yard stage, which starts it, are mechanically the same. Draw, diagonal step, pair to the chest, diagonal step again, drop into a kneeling, pair to the chest.
Mm-hmm.
My 25-yard time was like between the 3 runs was like 7.6 to 7.8 consistently seconds.
Yeah.
My 15-yard time was 6.6 to 6.7. My old organization allows 30 seconds for the 25-yard stage and 20 seconds for the 15-yard stage. And
Yeah.
I was somewhere between a quarter and a third of that allowable time, right? And I'm not a working cop. I'm not a 30-year-old,
Yeah.
right? I'm 59 with lousy knees, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
still shooting it like that. So one of
Yeah.
the problems we have that's legitimate discussion is
Mm-hmm.
we give people excessive amounts of time
Yeah.
to allow stuff done. So if you're going just on a par time, yeah, go for the 300 points,
Yeah.
right? But you probably got to go at you probably got to hit the
Yeah.
gas a little bit more. I don't like talking fast and slow. I like more deliberate, less deliberate,
Yeah.
right? Which gets into things about the AC. But something I want to point out, I just pulled up the practice score printout from a match I shot last Monday night. So I was sixth place out of 20 something shooters. 77.69. I had five. That was my total time. I had 5 points down.
Yeah.
Also shooting the match was a GM that I've shot at against in a bunch of local matches, and I just taken
Hmm.
a class from him. So I was 77.69. Frank was 97.5, but he was 62 points down.
Yeah.
So he shot that. If you take his points down away, he shot that like that whole match in 35 seconds, and there were four strings. Two were field courses, two were closer to a classifier string of fire, right? But what killed him was all his points down. So I know that dude's shooting a bunch of down fives,
Hmm.
down three, sorry.
Is this IDPA?
This IDPA,
Yeah.
right? Trying to go as fast as he could, but
Yeah.
because he was trying to go fast, it just wrecked him on the score to the point where he was at the halfway mark in the match.
Yeah.
Even with that, now the scary thing is there were guys who had not too many more points down than him, but took again a third again as long, right? So I think like the
Yeah.
slowest time I've got here is 173.
Yeah. Yeah. This qual course is, it's just a straight up points course, and there's a par time for each stage. Um, like I said, my state has adopted the standard that just began January 1, the minimum standard. Now, agencies have the option to be more stringent, but
It
what
doesn't,
happens? They all
it
go
doesn't
right
matter.
straight to, yeah. But the standard now has become 2 seconds per shot.
Yeah.
And so when they are figuring up how many shots are in the string, they're automatically going, okay, 2 seconds for that, which is woeful, absolutely woeful. Um, yeah, and I may get in trouble for for speaking out on this.
You've been IA over what you said on a podcast yet.
Yeah, no, I have not. No, I have
This
not.
could be your first.
Yeah, I never identify my agency in the organization in the podcast. So.
I didn't either, and it didn't matter. One of my stalkers.
Yeah, um, and plus my organization didn't do this, so
Yeah.
there is that. We don't set the standards; we just have to meet them. Um, and I know my agency director battled against this, but is what it is. Uh, I personally think it's a move to make sure cadets don't flunk out of the academy.
Which is,
And as Daryl Bolke always says, you get the cops you vote for.
yeah, it's incredibly unfortunate.
Hmm.
There are things that should preclude you from making it to graduation.
Yeah,
Inability to accurately shoot your duty weapon
yeah,
under reasonable time constraints is one. And
yeah,
ability to deal with going hands on with another human being is another.
yeah, yeah,
Driving, because we do a
yeah,
whole lot more driving than we do anything else.
yeah.
And if you can't drive, uh,
Hmm.
that should preclude you. And when I was an FTO and again as an FTO sergeant, we knew that if folks couldn't do one of those three things, they were probably going to have problems.
Yeah,
If they couldn't do two, we would have just been better off terminating them right then and there.
yeah,
Right? We didn't
yeah,
always get that option.
yeah. I will say this: the number of hours that is dedicated to shooting has been dramatically increased under the new curriculum that went into effect on January 1. Um, yeah, it used to be they got their so-called range week, which is really range 2.5 days, and they got like another 2 days with the pistol and what we call officer survival.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then that was it in the academy. It's gone from that to now they get range week plus they get several days sprinkled in that are called advanced pistol days, and then there's going to be a week long uh, thing of quote officer survival shooting. So they're going to get a lot more time with the gun. They're going to get a lot more time in on shooting from unconventional positions, shooting on the move, shooting, like on VTAC barricades, all that kind of stuff that they were not getting before. So the ultimate end product may end up being better. Um, but that bar on qualification, that's been dramatically lowered. And I was talking with one of the cadets about it, and you know, I'm so old. I went through 3 qualification courses ago, and it used to be my state specified this is the state qual. Agencies may shoot a different state qual so long as it meets or exceeds the standard set by the state qual. Uh, that course of fire, the course of fire that went into effect, well, that was in effect when I went through the academy. I don't know what year it went in, but I went through in 94, excuse me, 99. And I know what the course of fire was that preceded it, but I don't know what the dates are. Uh, we got a new course in 2004. Then we got a new course in 2021, and now we just got this new course. And we've gone from much more stringent marksmanship requirements to really not having marksmanship requirements at all for the qualification.
What I always love it when guys start agencies start talking qualification and pushing that stuff because there's no case law on it. There's absolutely nothing that says you have to qualify, right? Or what it has to contain. That's all administrative stuff at departmental or state level,
Yeah,
right? And people forget that, hey, look, we actually have to train. We have to train to
yeah,
a standard.
yeah. What the state did that went into effect January the 1st was instead of having an official state course, they set a bunch of minimum standards. Now, then they adopted a course that has to be run for all of the academies. So when I'm talking about the course, it's the one that's being run for all the academies. Agencies could either use that or they could just come up with their own thing. Um, Now, on one hand, it gives agencies a lot more creative flexibility in their qual, which they could have had that before, but many chose not to. What I fear is agencies are going to say, "Well, the state says this is good enough now. Let's just this is what we're going to do," versus um, let's keep doing what we were doing, or let's get creative here. Um,
It's not an unreasonable fear.
yeah.
Several years ago, California started pushing out perishable skills.
Hmm.
And it was oddly enough in driving hands-on skills and firearms.
Yeah.
And also tactical communications, right? Verbal
Hmm.
judo and some other stuff. Um, they were adamant that this was in addition to, not in place of.
Yeah.
That lasted a couple of years, and then
Yeah.
everybody started going, well, that we'll just plug that in as one of our sessions.
Yeah.
Oh, we fought really hard to get away from shooting quals twice a year and go to we'll qualify everybody on every one of their
Yeah.
weapons first
Yeah.
quarter of the year, and then we will spend the rest of the year training.
Yeah.
And then perishable skills came in, so that took up a quarter, right? And
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. I know what some agencies were doing under the previous standards is they would shoot the state qual once a year so they could check the state's box, and then they would have an agency qual that their own in-house staff came up with another time in a year. Um, the agency I was at for 15 years, we came up with our own course, and that exceeded the state standards. Um, However, if it ever came down to somebody was about to get terminated for not qualifying, I would run them on the state course just in case there was a problem of having to defend it in court and everything. I also had them not passing the state course or whatever. That very, very rarely came up. Um, and the course, the 2021 course, even going as far back as the 2004 course, um, takes 240 points to qualify. In both of those courses, there was 220 points at the 3 and the 7. So you just had to get 60 points somewhere between the 15 and the 25. So theoretically, you could miss every shot at the 25, just hit the planet Earth, and you could still
it's
qualify.
going to.
Yeah, as long as you didn't kill yourself, shoot yourself or somebody else, or step out in front of the line or do something, and you got 240 points, you qualified. Under the new There's 240 points at the 3 and the 7,
Right.
and there's no shots at the 25. It only goes out to the 15.
And yet, what do we talk about on active shooter response?
Yeah,
Being able to deal with the hallway of a school, right?
yeah,
Elementary, middle, or high school, right? Being able to
yeah,
deal with an aisle in a grocery store or a Walmart, right? I
yeah,
said to throw Walmart out, given where you live.
yeah.
Uh, you know, but we talk about these longer engagements,
Hmm.
right? And the need to be able to do it. And then we turn around and have qual courses that top out at relatively short distances.
Yeah. I wouldn't necessarily be upset with a 15-yard quote wall course if we ran it with 100% accountability.
Yeah,
You have one shot into the non-scoring area. One shot that doesn't score. It's
right.
not on the silhouette.
If it
Uh,
departs the silhouette, that's an out,
yeah,
right?
yeah. If it doesn't score, which means you completely miss the person you were shooting at, um, then that's a failure. Yeah, I'd be okay with that standard. Our target, the area around the silhouette is green, and so we'll talk about shots in the green on that.
Oh,
And
God, why do we do this to ourselves?
yeah, if we were to put, if you have one shot into the green, then I think you should be failed. But
I was talking about the color of the target. That was
yeah,
all.
yeah. Well, there is one company out there that makes them that is blue.
Seen
But
those too.
the ones that most everybody buys are green. Um, the actual target that they're shooting itself is actually kind of an off-white color. Um, yeah, I'd say I'd be okay with 15 yards if we were running 100% accountability.
The new Arizona qual,
Hmm.
Arizona post qual. I have not. I shot one of the kind of precursor ones, the pre-production
Hmm.
ones that they were talking about.
Yeah.
But the new one currently has multiple headshots at 15 yards. And I can't remember the number of it, like three,
Hmm.
five, something like that.
Yeah.
But it's not because they're teaching a failure drill. It's because they want them to shoot the head, right? Okay,
Yeah.
let's just do reduced target area
Yeah.
rather than potentially encouraging
Yeah.
people to shoot headshots at 15.
Yeah.
And that's why those folks that advocate failure drills as the default response are like, yeah, out to 10 yards tops.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
I will say this: the new course does have a lot more headshots in it
Mhm.
than um, the previous one did. Now, some of them are at closer ranges. So it is forcing cadets to shoot more times at a smaller target than they were doing
So be more
previously.
deliberate with
Yeah,
their sights and trigger.
yeah. Um, Now the target we use is the SQT A1. Um, the scoring rings on this target are very, very faint, and they're designed that way on purpose so that when you're at any kind of distance, you can't see the scoring rings. I have a tendency to shoot the very top line of the head box because if I look at the center of the head, that's about where my sights go. Um, the center of the box is actually on the target. If you drew a line across the tops of the ears, that goes to the center of the head box. And when I am precise enough that I'm paying attention to that, I don't have a problem getting them in the head box. When I'm ripping it, I have a tendency to go to the center of the head, and that's a little high from the 10-point ring because it's showing like an eye box, and you got a lot of forehead above that.
Five head,
Uh,
six head,
Go ahead.
five head, six head.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear
Instead of a four head, a five head, or a six.
you. Yeah,
Oh boy, if I got to repeat it three times, it's lost.
yeah, yeah. You remember I'm deaf. I spend a lot of time around guns, um, and the dogs are having a fight in the background. Um, but yeah, so I see some of the students that they struggle with some of those headshots.
Mm-hmm.
But even though they're all at the 3 and the 7, if we were requiring heads out of the 15, I think we would be in a lot more problematic. With cadets that I have a rapport with, that I can kind of friendly jab at them a little bit.
Right.
When they put one out into the green, but they otherwise qualify or whatever, like I go up there and say, "Hey, you see that target, that shot out there?" And they go, "Yeah." Like I said, that just went down the street. and it killed a little girl that was playing in her front yard. You know what that girl was going to grow up to do? She was going to grow up to cure cancer. You're now responsible for millions of deaths. And they get kind of wide at me, and I was like, and I know I'm being exaggeration here, but that's the thing. We got to think about those rounds that don't go where we intend for them to go. They're going somewhere.
You mean like in Pop Out versus Margate? Like
Yeah.
when the cop shot the none involved dude on the front porch
Yeah.
rather than the kidnapping suspect they were
Hmm.
trying to shoot? Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, that was sarcasm, folks. It's my
Yeah.
fault.
And it's just, it's one of those things that we need to drive home that, oh, yeah, you shot a passing score, but you put this shot out here that didn't score. Where did that shot go? We need to make sure that the consequences of that are known, that they're internalized. Now, I don't do that thing to a cadet that's mentally struggling,
Yeah.
or whatever, that would get upset about it. But
But that may not be a conversation for that individual cadet, but that sure
right,
should be a conversation
right,
with the entire recruit class.
yeah,
And really, if we're going to get serious about this, we need to go to the standard of you missed the scoring part of the paper. You put that
yeah,
round somewhere else.
yeah,
I'm not saying like, oh, I'm looking at the A zone and I can't tell. I'm talking
yeah,
about like
right,
that
yeah,
round right there. Okay,
yeah,
done. That was a
yeah,
fail, right?
yeah,
Um, Matches. Quite
yeah,
frankly, if we started going to match DQs
hmm,
for missing a target, and I'm not saying
yeah,
that I would never fall in that category, right?
right, yeah,
I have.
yeah,
Um, but like if you miss the target, that should be a match DQ if we're going to be
yeah,
serious about that, or at least make
yeah,
it a stage DQ. I'd be good with
yeah,
that.
yeah,
Put some consequences on it on not putting rounds on paper.
yeah, yeah, I agree. Um, you touched on something earlier that I want to bring up. Let's delve into that deeper. Uh, if I could strike phrases from, if I could go in and remove a phrase from every firearm instructor's vocabulary, it's at least in the top two. Slow down and get your hits would
Yep,
be one of the top two that I would delete. And I know right now I'm going to get all kind of messages. What's the other one? And I'm doing that on purpose.
that's okay
Uh,
because I think I know what it is, but I'm not going to say it. At least not
uh,
mine out right now either.
yeah, because what I see is the student immediately slows everything
Yeah,
down, and then they end up letting the par time elapse, and they hold shots.
be more deliberate
Yeah,
was the choice that I used, and I'm not going to take credit for that at all because I know I
yeah,
stole it from somebody. I just can't remember
yeah,
where I heard it from. Be more deliberate about your sight picture. Be more deliberate about your trigger press. Be
yeah,
more deliberate about what's going on with your grip. Right.
yeah, yeah. Because like numerous times working the range the other day, when a cadet, you know, in their practice runs, if they didn't shoot a score that was good, and I walk up and say, "Hey, you know what you need to do here," and they, because one of the other instructors has said it to them, they go, "I know, slow down and get my hits." I said, "No, slowing down is not the issue. Go fast and still get your hits. Now, the reason you're not getting your hits is this. Let's talk about how we fix it."
So I was on the range for about 4 hours today shooting
Yeah,
shotgun. I got two
yeah,
shotguns. I'm
yeah,
putting in some time with one I just got for a review. Um, Sighting system sits very low to the barrel,
hmm,
very low to the barrel. Um, and it is a fiber optic front on a ghost ring, big
hmm,
fiber optic front on a ghost ring. And there were times when I was working lateral transitions with it
hmm,
where I didn't see the front fiber optic through the ghost ring. I saw the front fiber optic between the ghost ring and the side and the ear
yeah,
and broke the shot, right? Because it was there.
yeah,
Um, and I, this is the first time I've really gone back and spent time shooting iron sights on a shotgun in probably 2, 3 years.
yeah,
Because the other gun that I was shooting today has a dot on it. So,
yeah,
it was just fascinating. It was reminding me it's like not slower, be more deliberate about what you're seeing, right? It's not
yeah,
necessarily a trigger press on one of those,
yeah,
but it's making sure that I'm seeing what I need to see.
yeah. Um, it just we need to be careful about the words we say because they do plant things in people's heads. And if in my head what I'm hearing is the problem is speed, well then the way to fix that is to go slower.
Come off the gas.
Yeah. But that doesn't fix the reason that you missed. Usually. Like those A's that I pushed into C's, if I'd have backed off a little bit, I could have put them into the A's.
No,
However,
if you backed
if
off, you might have launched them into the C zone
yeah,
had you been more deliberate about what you were
yeah,
seeing and pressing.
right, right. Um, but in backing off, being more deliberate.
Okay.
Yeah, but to the cadet that's putting them into the green, backing off them speed wise isn't going to fix that. They
No.
still have the problem that they have that's causing them to miss.
Yes.
Yeah. And if you could delete one phrase universally from firearms instructors' vocabularies, which one would you delete?
This point, probably front sight.
Really?
Watch the
Okay.
front sight. There's another one out there, but I'm going to leave that one to you. Right. Uh, I simply because it got so overused.
Yeah.
It got so overused. See what you need
Yeah.
to see. Be deliberate about seeing it,
Hmm.
and then work the trigger without disturbing what it is you need to see.
Yeah. Jerking the trigger's the one that
Yeah,
I would get
that's
rid of
yeah.
because
But
you just basically stepped all over it. But
well, sorry, I tried to work
yeah,
that dance around
yeah,
it.
yeah. I wasn't gonna go there, but yeah, and that's what it is. Is they say you're jerking the trigger. You can beat the trigger as long as you don't move the gun. It's the other fingers that are the problem.
And then we start getting into other things about
Yeah,
grip stuff, and not to dive into that.
yeah,
But if you ask 10 grandmasters for their grip, you're going to get 12 directions as to what you need to do, right?
right,
Like find a starting point that works for you,
yeah,
adjust it from there based on your
yeah,
experience, and apply it to the problem.
yeah. It's funny. We were shooting in relays, and there was odd number of students in the class. One had 10, the other had 11. And so in the one that had 10, there was an open spot. So I jumped on the line to shoot the course along with them. And I was ripping it. And when I got done, uh, yeah, somebody was marveling at the speed. And they said to one of the other instructors, his gun didn't even move. When talking about I don't like 9 millimeter pistols do
Yeah.
not recoil. There's no need to compensate them. 9 millimeter pistols cycle. Um, yeah. He said his gun doesn't move, and the instructor that's standing beside him has a background in practical shooting and everything. He goes, "Yeah, that's because he's doing that grip thing he's been telling you about."
So wait, I'm not the only sarcastic instructor in the
Oh
profession.
no, yeah,
Okay, good.
yeah. And it's as the students are on the line, you walk down, you see big gaps in their grip, and you walk over, hey, just would you try this for me? Rotate that hand forward a little bit so that the palm of this other hand fills in that gap so you don't see the space right here. Okay, on the next relay, I want you to concentrate on doing that for me. And then you watch their pistol going from, exaggeratedly muzzle flipping to barely flipping. And then I'll walk up to them and say, so what happened there? Oh, my gun didn't move as much.
Yeah.
And it's part of this whole thing I've been trying to convince myself to do called teaching through questions and rather than orders. And it's like, oh, so filling up all of the space on the grip and having contact with the whole grip area, that worked. You got a better result out of that. Oh yeah, well then maybe you should do that.
Okay.
Then walk on down the line and let them have a say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, have input into what their choices are going to
2 second
be.
pause. We'll edit that out.
Well,
Sorry.
see, now that requires that I have to do editing, and that also implies that I know how to do that.
Oh yeah. Okay.
So that's those are the rubs right there. But I'll go back and I'll throw it on just kind of what I've learned over the years. Uh, I now realize the incorrect approach that I took a lot of the time when I was working with, um, you know, deputies or officers that struggled knew, and I'd be like, I know how to do this. Do what I'm telling you to do. Versus, hey, you see what you're trying? Would you try this for me?
Yeah.
All right. What do you see different in the results? And then they'll tell you,
Hmm.
unless they're just completely mentally overwhelmed. And you will get those that are
That happens.
completely, to some people, having a loaded firearm in their hand completely overwhelms their mental capacity.
Yep.
Um, and that's not just firearms. That could be getting behind the wheel of a car. It could be any kind of new skill that they're being introduced into, or a skill that they've done a lot in their life, and now all of a sudden they're in a testing component
Right.
on it, or different different criteria. Yeah, I can drive from here to town pretty regular. I've been doing that for decades. Yeah, put me out on a high speed track, and it's a different animal.
Or one of
Uh,
the things we see out here was, and this was
yeah,
anecdotally talking to San Francisco PD,
yeah,
the amount of folks they had that grew up in the city that had never driven,
yeah,
like didn't even have driver's licenses.
yeah.
So now they're trying to teach them performance driving to post standards, right?
And
Which is
they've never driven
all
a
the low
car.
speed maneuvers, never mind trying to drive at speed or
Yeah,
faster, right? And driving in the city, even at the posted speed limits, just
yeah.
absolutely bizarre, or any other big city for that matter, but San
Hmm.
Francisco has the hills. So I can't imagine how that would have gone.
I've seen that happen once where somebody went through one of the driving courses that they moved from New York down here, and they'd had a driver's license for 4 months
Oh, wow.
when they went to the academy, and they had to do all the other driving. Um, I, that I don't know if that's better or worse.
It's very much on a par with a lot of who we get for
Yeah,
firearms these
yeah,
days.
yeah. Um, I used to, I had no judgment negatively whatsoever towards a cadet that did not make it through firearms in the academy. If like they came in and that was the first exposure they'd ever had to it. I don't judge the cadets that struggle with the driving. If that's the first exposure they've ever had to with it and everything. Um, I know I struggled with both
Right.
in the academy. I went through, now again, 4 courses ago, qual courses ago. I got through with an 82% and 84%, and 80% is the minimum from graduation. On the driving, I got down to my very last attempt on one of the exercises, uh, or I wouldn't have made it through.
Yeah.
So I completely understand the struggles that
Hmm.
they go through. And um, again, I think some are just completely mentally overwhelmed. And if we start trying to throw so much at them at one point in time, it's just more than they can get to. It's not a if they fail firearms or whatever that they're awful human beings or that they're not idiots. Now, if their attitude is I know what I'm doing, I got this, or they insist upon doing something else, or just not following the program, well, then that is on them.
Or they refuse to get comfortable with it, right?
Yeah,
For whatever reason, they've so bought into
yeah,
I don't know, propaganda. Yeah, it's not
yeah,
the right word, but I'm going to go with it. Uh,
yeah,
that they just never get comfortable with the stuff.
yeah,
So
yeah. It's it's all mental,
yeah.
all mental, and it's some people have greater mental capacities than others. But you know what? There's people that I could outshoot that would do a much better job fixing my car
Hmm.
than I would. And it's you know, I'm vaguely aware that there is a motor inside my car, under the hood, and it's
Yeah, I went farther afield than that. I'll leave it. Yeah,
uh,
yeah. It's like I tell folks,
yeah,
I call you for your skill set because it is not my skill set, and that is what
right,
I do for a living, right?
yeah,
Call me for mine.
yeah. I had air conditioner repairman at my house one day, and yeah, obviously because my air conditioner was broken, and it gets warm here in Georgia,
No.
on top of humidity. And so I walk out back. He's working on it. He starts explaining to me what's wrong with the air conditioner, and and he presents like a couple of options to me. It's like, I want you to fix my air conditioner. He said, well, do you want me to go this route or this route? I said, I want you to fix my air conditioner. And he said, well, I want you to understand. I said, sir, if I knew how to do this, you wouldn't be here.
I
Yeah.
just closed on a house Friday,
Okay.
bought a house.
All right.
And I had to keep explaining to the people I was dealing with that, look, I don't know what I don't know. I've never
Yeah.
been through this.
Yeah.
And you have to take the time to tell me stuff. And it was fascinating because I was thinking back to when I was a working cop and that time where the light, that kind of time frame where
Mm-hmm.
the switch flipped and it was like,
Yeah.
oh, you know, if you spend 30 or 45 seconds explaining to these people why everything went the way it did, your life will be a whole lot easier.
Yeah.
Right. And it was
Yeah.
just kind of fascinating.
Yeah. And, you know, we have to meet the student where they are.
Yep.
It's not their fault unless their attitude's wrong. But if their attitude's right and they're not getting it, it's up to us to find, um, a way to get there. I did not get the results I wanted from a recent class on some, uh, basically the articulation of deadly force. And I was teaching from, here's what the law says, here's what you do. So I need you to understand the law, be able to everything. And what I saw was the students were getting so caught up in trying to give me the mechanical, response back to it, which you could do, I could do, whatever, but the students were struggling with that.
Yeah.
And so I spent a lot of time thinking about it. So with my current group, I was like, okay, what I want you to do when I ask you to articulate this use of force is I want you to imagine that you're telling this story to a bunch of people who aren't cops. You're
Hmm.
talking to your buddies, you're standing in front of a church group or whatever. And I just want you to explain to me what happened.
Hmm.
Let's get away from the mechanical things. In other words, I won't let them get away now with saying weapon.
Right.
Now, I don't know what weapon is. I don't know what weapon they had. Oh, the crowbar that they had raised up above their head as if they were going to strike you with it, something like that. It's like, just say that.
I think part of that is the way agencies still talk
Hmm.
and the way, God, the way reporters still write. If I
Yeah.
see one more reporter write, and then the officer discharged his service weapon, service revolver.
Over. Yeah.
Okay, you people are blithering idiots.
Yeah.
But the fact that the agency doesn't come out and say our officer shot the man because of this.
Yeah.
You didn't discharge your firearm. You shot him.
Yeah. Yeah.
It wasn't a
And
service revolver.
what I have seen is, well, I can tell you, I'm having much less frustration with my current crop
Yeah.
than I have with previous because I got better. I
Right.
changed my approach. Uh, so okay, I'm not teaching me because I get it.
Right.
I need to be teaching them so that they get it. It's what the student needs. It's not what I need. And moving forward, that's where I'm going. With this, and until it gets to where that doesn't work, and then I'll have
Call
to
the
adapt.
audible and find something else.
Yeah. But
When
exactly what you're saying too is, when we put out agencies put out press releases, and when they don't, or worse yet, they don't talk to the media, um, or don't talk directly to the public. There's this thing called Facebook now, and there's this thing called YouTube, and there's this thing called Instagram, and what
it's
used to
like
be
MySpace,
Twitter,
right?
used to be called Twitter. I think it's called X now.
Yeah.
You can speak directly to the public without the media being your intermediary. Just come out and explain what happened. As my old boss used to say, the video ain't going to change.
Oh,
Show them the video of what happened. And yeah, it's that simple. Anything else along those lines before we shift gears?
no, no, I think we have bludgeoned that one yet again.
All right. Well, I know you were at SHOT this year.
Mhm.
Any impressions on what you saw at SHOT?
So nothing earth shattering.
Hmm.
Um, One of my buddies said it was evolutionary, not revolutionary, and I
Hmm.
won't argue against that.
Yeah.
Um, if if there was anything new in the stuff that I was looking at, Staccato's cracked the code.
Yeah.
Everybody wants the HD, uh,
Yeah.
and wants to treat that thing like a roadie in the back of a tour bus. Speaking of that, their booth was like a rock concert, right?
Yeah.
They've cracked the code. Um,
Yeah.
Double stack 1911s, 2011s, whatever we're going to call them, are incredibly
Yeah.
common. A lot of lever guns this year.
Yeah.
Um, it was more just kind of an evolutionary year. I mean, there was
Yeah.
not a lot earth shattering. Um, Lower numbers, I think. That was kind of the perceptions of a few other folks I talked to. Less of the looky loos, less of the influencers, right?
Hmm.
The influencers that were there are ones that are a little bit more substantial, um, but less of the looky loos. I don't recall getting run into by as many milk crates being drugged behind folks.
There you go. Beyond just passingly looking at their webpage and occasionally taking a few shots with a student staccato or a buddy staccato, I've never really been interested in it. I got to tell you, I look at that HD running off the Glock mags and I'm thinking, I still can't imagine myself spending that much money on a pistol, but
I carried a 1911 my first 20 years, and
yeah.
it was not a stock. Um, Doug McDougall, who I'd gone to junior high school with, Doug
Yeah.
was American Pistol Smiths Guild. Doug built all my guns
Hmm.
for until he passed away in '04. So when the staccato came around, I'd already made the switch and was heavily invested
Yeah.
in the piece, but I bought one for myself as a retirement present.
Yeah.
Had a grip reduction done on it. If I went
Mhm.
back to work tomorrow, would I carry one? Probably not,
Yeah.
right? But there's more than one reason behind that, and it's not necessarily negative towards
Yeah.
staccato. I am intrigued with the HD.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't know if this is because of me being old and a curmudgeon, right? I'm not going to tell people to get off my lawn.
Yeah.
But if you're going to carry a gun with a grip safety, learn how to use the grip safety. Don't tape it down or rubber band it down.
Yeah.
And if you can't make it work without doing that, then maybe you should find another pistol.
Yeah.
HD does away with that, right?
Yeah.
To me, it gives you the best parts of the 1911 platform, which is a single action trigger that is very shooter friendly.
Mhm.
It runs on a magazine that has a great reputation,
Yep.
right? Now they're shipping it with Mechar mags, and how that pans out in the long run will
Yeah.
have to be seen.
Yeah.
But the fact that they came back with a 4.5 inch barrel, they're kicking a 4 inch out the door first, and then they're going
Mhm.
to come back with a 4.5 inch gun. Um, and they made the slide wider to accommodate an RMR, an
Mhm.
optic with the RMR dimensions on it. So it has a filler plate, not a mating plate, right? So
Yeah.
the filler plate
Yeah.
sits between the slide and the optic.
Mhm.
And you run the bolts down. You're not bolting the plate to the slide and the optic to
Yeah.
the plate. So
Yeah.
at least it has fewer failure points. I'm
Yeah.
interested in it. I want to get my
Yeah.
hands on one.
Mhm. Well, one of the reasons mm, I've got experience with the 1911 platform, but one of the reasons why I kind of abandoned it quickly and never really gave a 2011 platform a go was one of the reasons you just said, grip safety.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know why I struggle with that. I'm like, okay, let me set down this expensive heavy gun and pick up this Glock, and I don't have that problem. Um, this doesn't have the grip safety. I find it kind of amusing that I'm a staunch closed emitter guy,
Hmm.
and I look at this HD and go, to put an acro on this thing, I'd have to put a plate on it. But to put, but to put, you know, something like the HD RMR or something like that on it, I can just bolt that sucker right to the gun. And
Could do that with the RCR.
yeah,
Your
I've
gun's
not, I've
better.
seen that optic, but I've not. don't have any.
I've got one.
Yeah.
Used it on a Shadow Systems pistol for review.
Hmm.
So I looked at both the Shadow Systems gun and the
Yeah.
RCR this past year. The RCR doesn't replace the Acro or
Yeah.
the Steiner MPS for me, so
Yeah.
maybe it'd be third.
Hmm.
Um, I think it has a shorter battery life than the other two, which is saying something.
Yeah.
But I can't quantify it at this point, so I kind of need to go back and revisit that.
Yeah.
I don't dislike that optic, right?
Yeah.
My concerns were about it mounting with the capstan
Hmm.
screws and being able to torque it. And my sample of one, that has not been an issue.
Yeah. Uh, I had a dramatic, unexplained zero shift in an RMR to the
Mm-hmm.
point where I was missing headshots at 7 yards, and that kind of scared me away from RMRs.
Yeah.
Um,
I broke 15 of the early RMRs in one
yeah.
year, right? And I've talked about that when we've talked about dot
Yeah.
stuff before. I am back to where I am not scared of them.
Hmm.
I don't know if that's the right word, but I for that somebody's Thanksgiving sale,
Yeah.
they had an RMR HD for about almost 200 off MSRP,
Hmm.
and so I picked one up, and I've just kind of been
Yeah.
looking for a gun to put it on. What
Yeah.
if you look at the SRO and you're concerned about that front lens hanging over the ejection
Yeah.
port? You're gonna panic when you see an RMR HD on a gun.
Yeah. Yeah.
But listening to Buck, I think it's Buck Petticord from Staccato, talked, that was one of the things, was the reason they put the backup iron sight
Yeah.
between the optic and the ejection port was so they could move everything far back,
Yeah.
right? And not have the over excuse me,
Yeah. And not have the overhang and have
not
kind of a
have the
deflection
overhang
point.
and any
Yeah.
concerns with that, right? So
Yeah. Yeah. Because of the Glock mags, the no grip safety, everything else, I would kind of be tempted by an HD.
yeah,
And I looked at the law enforcement sale price, and it's not completely out of the limits, but I know I could
I
do.
think they've got like almost a 40% discount for active LE
Yeah,
on.
it's $800 off of MSRP.
Yeah,
So you would be in that gun for roughly $1,600, just the gun. Now
which
you know
is
the
right
optic is.
about, yeah, which is right about what I paid
Yeah.
for my, I'm sorry, for my Staccato P back in
Yeah.
2019.
But I look at that and go, okay, I know what the blue label price is on the new Koa
Mm,
Glocks, and I could do two Koa Glocks.
yeah.
For, I could do a training and a carry version, you know, uh, of that still for what one of these would cost me. So that's the segue into the aim point Koa and the whole A cut and everything. Did you get a chance to look at that?
Got a chance to look at it on, I think, on a Glock 48 at the aim point booth.
Yeah.
Uh, I didn't go over to Glock
Yeah.
really to take time looking at it.
Yeah.
Um, my thoughts. They have an optic now that will work, an enclosed emitter optic that
Hmm.
is, I mean, you use the phrase duty rated, and I'm sure somebody
Yeah.
can argue with me. Um, that will fit on full size and mid size guns. And I'm talking
Yeah.
slide dimensions, right?
Hmm.
So that's no longer an issue. They did away with plates, though
Yeah.
I've already heard people talking about they're making plates that will take the COA footprint.
Which is ridiculous.
Like, so you're going to bolt a plate onto an MOS slide or whatever, so you can then bolt the COA onto the, yeah, never mind.
And you can't even get the Koa without the pistol for the next 12 months.
Yeah. All right, do whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
Uh, if this pans out, in terms of actual like usage,
Yeah.
awesome. I was hoping what we were going to see was a refinement of the existing footprint,
Yeah.
existing acro footprint. So now my concern is this the answer or just another
Another
answer?
answer. Yeah.
Right? Like, it's not open quote, capital A, close quote
Yeah.
answer, right?
Yeah.
It's just gonna be another way. Uh,
Yeah.
did they generate some interest by giving Glock exclusive rights for the first year?
Yeah.
I'm sure it did, right?
Yeah.
I expect November, December we're going to start seeing everybody and their brother with koa footprints
Yeah.
if this stuff takes off.
Yeah.
Did some things with the optic I like. They went to a hollow sun type battery tray, right? So
Mhm.
nothing sticks out the side and slides
Yeah.
in. The problem is like hollow sun, they didn't go to a captured screw,
Yeah.
right? So now the problem we're going to have is unless people are putting thread locker on that screw,
Yeah.
we're going to lose battery trays like we are on the hollow suns.
Yeah. I
I
actually
like
saw that happen here recently. Somebody lost the whole tray and battery and everything. But the one they were using was one that had the solar on it, so they still have the adapter for the rest of the course.
um, I like the rear clamping
Hmm.
mechanism.
Yeah.
I like the fact that both of those are big, coarse
Yeah.
screws.
Yeah.
Getting away from trying to use these fine screws with a fine,
Hmm.
small screws with a fine thread pitch. Um, I've had people go, but I can't adjust the iron sights for windage.
Who cares?
Excuse me, how many of you people were actually adjusting the iron sights for windage
Yeah.
for?
Yeah.
Before we started putting optics on guns and people started thinking about zero.
Yeah.
For the last, well, since the Acro came out, so 2019, so 5+ years, I've been using Doug Holloway from ATEI's method,
Hmm.
where he basically cuts that Picatinny rail looking interface
Hmm.
onto the slide and then mills out a slot on top of it, takes a piece of sheet metal that he's bent and cut to work like a rear sight, drop it in and clamp it.
Yeah.
Um, that is not at all adjustable for windage because of the way the slots cut, right? Like
Hmm.
it's a reference point is
Yeah.
what it is.
Yeah.
I'm not overly concerned about it.
Yeah.
Um, that mounting piece, that bolting
Hmm.
piece, sits low enough that it doesn't obscure much of the window. And
Yeah.
in fact, when we were talking about it, I looked down and realized that I had a Prodigy and a Staccato
Hmm.
within arm's reach. But one of the guns that I had, Prodigy, that I just did a review on, it was the compact one with a domestically least marketed enclosed emitter optic. The rear sight on the thing was so high that it was probably 80% of the way to the dot,
Hmm.
right? And so what happened was is I lost the bottom, almost the bottom half of the window just with the backup rear sight.
Yeah.
I don't see that being the problem on the Koei. It looks like it's sat a whole lot lower.
Yeah. I got to tell you, I'm intrigued by it. The only reason I have anything in the 365 family is because I bought them in protest of the fact that I couldn't get a Glock 48 that I could direct mount an optic to without making modifications. And so I delved kind of deeply into the 365 family with a couple of macro tac ops versions, and then I got a Fusion that came out. I'm not satisfied with my performance with those guns. The guns shoot fine. I'm just not satisfied with my performance when I shoot a 48 better than I shoot a macro or a tac ops. Um, I have always preferred the 19 to the 17.
Mm-hmm.
I like the shorter grip of the 19. So I'm looking at this Koa. The only reason I have a Glock 45 is because I could get one direct milled from the factory, and I couldn't get a 19 direct milled from the factory,
Right.
which aggravated me to no end because it's the same slide. Um, I'm looking at this now and going, okay, if I sell off my 45, if I sell off my direct milled Shadow DR or XR 920, if I go sell off all my 365 family of stuff, all the holsters, for them, all that kind of stuff, take all that money and go buy two 48s and two 19s.
Mm-hmm.
And I have my carry version of each one. And then the one I actually go out and train and shoot with, that would pretty much cover my needs.
Yeah. I looking at it because I'm going to end up buying one of them. It will be the Gen 519 Koa,
Yeah.
right? And while I prefer the M&P line to the Glocks, I can do
Mhm.
stuff with the Glock. I just have to
Yeah.
go exclusively Glocks. I can't bounce back and forth.
Yeah.
Um, but the Gen 5 line fits my hands. The 19 is a do all gun.
Yeah.
Right? I could carry it exposed. if I had to go do cop stuff, which I'm not going to,
Mhm.
I can carry it concealed. I can teach with it. I can compete with it.
Yeah. Yeah. I carried a Glock 19 on duty
Mhm.
for a lot of years. Intermixed with that was a Glock 23. Oh my goodness, a 40 cals in there. But in between those two was a Glock 38, which has the same. It's had the same size grip of the as the 19. It just shot the 45 gap. Yes, I was one of the people that bought a 45
You were one
gap.
of the 45 people who bought a 45 gap.
I actually had the numbers of how many they had sold through distributors to agencies, so it was more than 45. Um, but yeah,
450.
the state patrol here in Georgia went with the gap,
Yeah.
and I had a deal with their ammo manufacturer. It was like anytime you do a contract order for them, run extra,
Yeah.
call me, and I'll come get them. And I was in the 38, and I had a 37 as well. I ran those guns for the whole length of the time that the GSP had them, and when
Mhm.
they went away um, from the Gap and went to a 9 millimeter, that man, there goes the contract, and the guy quit making 45 Gap. I'm like, well, now, so I sold both guns. Uh, I loved them. They were both laser beams. Um, I I wish that round had caught on.
Mhm.
I really do. I understand why it didn't, but I wish it had. Extremely soft shooting. Um, some shootings that I actually got to look at the performance. Looked pretty well. I know of one that the performance didn't go well, but the shot placement was good. The round just didn't perform. But I know of several others where very good performance on the bullet. But oh well, that's gone. 9 millimeters the king, and it's here to stay. But anything else from shot that stood out to you?
No. Um, so there was no LE range day this
Hmm.
year. Apparently something had happened at the Las Vegas Metro range in the past, not related to shot range day,
Yeah,
but the new sheriff shut it down.
yeah,
So that the focus, that focus
yeah.
shifted out to Staccato's facility at Prairie Fire. But apparently they were charging everyone, manufacturers and stuff,
Hmm.
to come out there and display their wares. I didn't end up going. I had other things to do.
Yeah,
I did go to Hollow Sun's um, live fire demo at one of the ranges in
yeah,
Vegas.
yeah.
Interesting stuff. They've got a weapon mounted light out, that rifle light. Pri- the retail price on it is excellent. It's eminently reachable by the vast majority of cops.
Hmm.
They just have to fix the reflector because they've got a good hot spot. The rest
Hmm.
of the reflector is kind of ridged, so you get
Yeah.
rings of light going through it. Once
Hmm.
they fix that, it'll be
Yeah.
golden. Their new IR and vis laser designators.
Hmm.
Um, and yes, I understand they're the research arm for the People's Liberation Army. I got it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
they're also trying to produce stuff for the domestic market, right? And for decent
Yeah.
human beings who are looking at the night vision world,
Yeah.
it might be a way to go if you can't afford a mall or some of the other follow on.
Yeah. Yeah. I get that whole argument with the Holosun. Um, I've got some Holosuns that I bought back when I first started
Mhm.
trying to learn the pistol mounted optic game. And that, quite frankly, I could get my hands on a 507 when I couldn't get my hands on some other things.
Yeah.
And so I got one and gave it a try. I prefer aim point,
Yeah.
no, hands down. Uh, but yeah, an iPhone is made in China. The computer I'm on right now is made in China. Uh, I don't think we can get away from the made in China thing, and it's all the money's all going to the same place.
The,
Until we bring production back home, that's going to be a problem with anything that you're buying, component wise.
I have complaints about Holosun. I talked about the
Hmm.
battery trays,
Yeah,
which is not the only issue in that area. But
yeah.
what I will say is they listen to the end user,
Hmm.
maybe not the individual end user, but they listen to the end user community,
Right.
and they're trying to build stuff to satisfy them.
Yeah.
And I will say the option of having that big empty circle
Hmm.
reticle that Holosun has in the 500 series to me is a significant advantage. I don't have to go to the primary arms route
Yeah.
and go to that 300 MOA circle, whatever that is, right? But just that 30 MOA, 30-ish MOA
Hmm.
circle right there is a big help with trying to get people to be target focused, not dot focused.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I did need to clarify something and say I did kind of misspeak. Oh, well, I'm rambling right there. Um, I do have a couple of VPS carries on my 365s, and I got an EPS on a Shadow Systems gun.
I've got two 507Ks sitting
Yeah.
here to go on shotguns. So
Yeah. But yeah, I would very much love, it's one of the reasons I'm thinking, sell off all that stuff and go to 248s with the Koa and 219s with the Koa and let that be it. Um, but I don't know.
I
It's,
think H&K stuff,
hmm
again, it's evolutionary,
yeah.
right? But if H&K would do a factory milling for the Acro footprint or
hmm
potentially the Koa footprint going
Yeah.
forward, now that you have the full size VP9, the VP9K
hmm
midsize gun, and you've got that CC9 as a concealed
hmm
carry gun, um, to me puts them on a par with the 17, 19, 43,
Yeah.
or the M&P compact, and a shield.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Yeah. We'll see. Didn't you just do a article on American Cop about the Mossberg Pro Series?
Yes, sir. That's what I was out shooting today.
Okay. Anything you want to say about that that whets people's appetites to go read your article?
So AmericanCop.com. I'm the editor, and I write every week. If you can tolerate that, please like and subscribe.
Yeah.
I'll come back to that in a second.
Yeah.
So Mossberg kind of came out with a pro line. So the backstory is they hired Jeremy Stafford from LAPD
Okay.
when Jeremy retired. He'd been at Firearms and Tactics. He'd also been patrol sergeant there. That
Hmm.
wasn't what got Jeremy in the door at Mossberg. What got him in the door there was he had used the mill issue Mossberg 590s in ground combat in Iraq.
Yeah.
So he had more substantial experience with it. Jeremy pushed the pro line. So a little bit of backstory. The military guns have a QA/QC spec they have to meet. Right now, it's like anything else that's mil spec. It
Hmm.
is just a standard. It doesn't mean it's great.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the LE guns were going out the door, and the guns to the normal humans were going out the door without a set standard. Right? They just had to pass
Yeah.
function testing.
Yeah.
What Jeremy kind of did was convince Mossberg to go to the Pro Series, which is the guns have some upgrades. Read the articles. Um, but what they've done is they've upgraded the QA/QC on those guns, and they're able to do some things that they can't do with the military guns because they're not bound by the mil spec.
Right.
Right? So the all the parts that go into it are qualified on the front end, and then the QA/QC is as extensive as the military stuff on the back end. Um, they've fit they're Cerakoting them rather than Parkerizing them because they
Hmm.
found that the Cerakote holds up longer and they can control the process by doing stuff in house. Um, so they've got a 590 Pro Series gun, traditional magazine, detachable magazine. They've got a breaching gun on that line. They've got a 940 Pro, which I was more interested in, having kind of made a shift to semi-auto shotguns. I was out shooting that one today, shot it at the media event, shot a bunch of rounds through this one today. They also have on the front end of it two shotguns, 590R and the 590RM, that have AR style safeties on them. So rather than the receiver mounted safety up
Hmm.
on the back of the receiver, you now can go to a pistol grip and actually still run the safety with it. And it works in theory like an AR. This is not inside baseball stuff. We told them to take a look at like the Magpul
Hmm.
selectors or ones from some of the other companies where you can punch a pin and shift one side to
Yeah.
the other, long or short. Both sides are the same length. The aftermarket's going to fix this. Both sides are the same length. And what we found, left-handed or right-handed, was guys were really getting beat up right
Yeah.
here,
Yeah.
um, with that safety lever would come down
Yeah. Yeah.
and you would catch it. I had blisters. There were guys who legitimately had like holes worn
Yeah.
in the finger.
Yeah.
We talked
Yeah.
to them about going to an ambit, one that could be replaced shorter, longer.
Yeah.
And that's not the way at least these production samples have gone.
Yeah.
Um, one of the things that was interesting, and I have to go kind of play with this a little bit more, is on the Pro Series guns, the ghost rings are not adjustable.
Okay.
They are fixed. And what I found with there was one lead, it was a Winchester Ranger reduced recoil slug. I was almost point of aim, point of impact. Every other load, every other slug load that I shot was shooting high and right for me.
Okay.
Now that was like intentionally, very deliberately looking through the ghost ring
Hmm.
at the front sight, putting it in the
Yeah.
same spot, and I was
Yeah.
consistently hitting here, holding at the bottom of the sternum.
Yeah.
Um, so I have to go shoot that one again, and there were some reasons given, and they're in the article
Yeah.
as to why Mossberg made that call. But it's the gun's designed to have optics on it. It's like
Yeah.
the A3 Beretta A300. It's designed to be an optic run gun.
Yeah. What footprint is the optic cut?
507K or 407K.
Okay, so K cut.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Anything else?
Mm, no, patterning was interesting with the gun today.
Okay.
I know everybody loves Federal flight controller, the LE-132 stuff. Um, I kind of have defaulted to the Hornady Versatile load. I
Hmm.
like it better. It normally it's a little looser. I
Hmm.
will tell you, it was the best performing load I shot through that gun today by
Yeah.
far. When I ran not flight control, but it was LE-132 stuff, it was at least double the size
Oh
of
wow.
the Hornady Versatile load.
Okay.
And when I buy those, I buy the light Magnum stuff,
Yeah.
which is factory chronoed at 1,600 feet per second. Right, it's out of a longer barrel, but it's still a fairly sporty load. Um,
Yeah.
but it performed much better.
Okay. Get back to the like and share on American Cop.
Okay, so um,
Subscribe, everything.
subscribe, right? Like just sign up for it. We'll send you the email every week. It
Hmm.
doesn't cost you anything. Emails usually got both articles that week and an ad from somebody. You can scroll past the ad, though we would
Yeah.
prefer you at least click through on it because it does make it easier for
Yeah.
interactions with the advertisers.
Yeah.
Our friend, sometimes we say that begrudgingly, John Hearn, was kind enough to write a review
Yeah.
of my pistol mounted optics instructor class. It happened to be the
Hmm.
hybrid version, so normal humans and
Yeah.
cops. We posted that on Facebook. I am normally ecstatic if I get 10 interactions on anything American Cop posts on Facebook. Last time I looked, which was this morning before I went to the rage, there were about 575 likes. People actually took the time to click.
Yeah.
We're pushing 400 comments on there. Now, granted, I am going in and replying to probably
Yeah.
75% of the comments in there.
Yeah.
Um, I am kind of shocked. There are people who clearly did not read the article. They
Right.
saw the photo,
Yep.
they saw the title,
Yeah.
and they are responding to that. So there are a fair amount of, oh, I'm really glad you read the article and commented. Maybe I'm sarcastic and snarky.
Yeah.
Um, but there were folks like, I don't need a dot. I was a
Yeah.
Marine Corps firearms instructor in
Yeah.
1947, and I don't need it. Okay, fine. You don't need
Yeah. My iron sights can't fog up and the battery
it. Right?
can't die.
Yeah, I got it. It's
Yeah.
just interesting.
Yeah.
Like I said, at SHOT, I gave the presentation on trends in law enforcement training. Last
Hmm.
week's article was on that subject, right?
Yeah.
This is like thinking about the training side, looking at stuff, analyzing it.
Hmm.
Very few interactions. Talking
Yeah.
talking about teaching the dot. And like
Yeah.
I said, probably a third of the people commenting are commenting on
Yeah.
dots on handguns, right?
Yeah.
There's another quarter of the people that are commenting on the fact that the photo shows people laying on their side in asymmetric positions, right?
Hmm.
It, like, guys, read the article.
Yeah.
Like, on the article. There was one good discussion, one about like, well, other people are teaching law enforcement programs, and
Yeah.
we pointed out that yeah, none of them are cops who have ever actually run a
Right.
firearms program at a large agency. Well,
Yeah.
but they've given input. That's not this giving input is not the same
Yeah.
actually day in day out having to manage
Right.
program at a large agency.
Yeah.
It was, yeah, it's unique.
Yeah. But the real downside to all of this is that Hearn has to get some sort of credit for being involved in these positive
Oh
results.
yeah,
And
yeah.
that's the downside there.
Oh, I'll give him credit for it. He wrote the article. I had to
Yeah.
edit it. I had
Yeah.
to make him sound smart and get him
Well,
1,000 words.
I tell you what, we'll blame him for all of the stupid comments, and
Blame the quality
we won't give him credit for anything good that was said.
and credit the quality of my material for anything like mature and intelligent on there.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. That's just the way it goes.
yeah. It's just been funny to
Yeah.
see kind of the interplay, and you're like, huh.
Yeah.
It, it was and the only other one I've had in a while that's gone like this was when Glock announced the aim point, the Koa pistol,
Hmm.
right? Like I shared a photo of that.
Yeah.
Wasn't even a photo I took. I just shared a photo of it,
Yeah.
and I was amazed at how that blew up.
Yeah. I have noticed that I can write something very thoughtful, put some effort into it, whatever, and I get one level of reaction. I take a picture of a gun
Yep,
and get all kind of other reaction to it.
yep,
And yeah, one of the reasons I have kept this show in the deep end of the pool, so to speak, was to avoid all those drive-by comments and stuff like that. Because the people that are of that mental, they're not going to sit through an hour and a half episode.
yeah,
Yeah. Or the deep discussions that I like to think we have on the show.
yeah.
Um,
I'd rather talk about stuff at an intellectual, philosophical level
yeah,
than
yeah,
gun go bang. Right now, like talking about the HD,
yeah,
just kind of segue back to that.
yeah.
There's some things in there that I think are really worthy of discussion.
Hmm.
One of which is widening the slide, but I think the biggest one is the grip safety,
Yeah.
just because of how 20, 25, 30 years of shooting Glocks, right? The industry has reacted to a pistol that a lot of people like, but that has a
Hmm.
grip safety on it, and a whole lot of people don't know how to run that.
Yeah.
So it's fascinating that okay, we took that problem out.
Yeah. It's amazing how many people don't know how to run the thumb safety on a 1911 2011 platform.
Do not get me started of folks in the competition world, EB grandmasters who advocate for taking the safety off as soon as
Yeah.
you start to clear the holster because it's faster in their world.
Yeah.
Right. That's a whole separate conversation.
Yeah. Guys, here's the rule: muzzle on target, safety off.
Yep.
Muzzle off target, safety on.
Yes.
Yeah. It's just like if you're shooting I'm a Smith raised guy, a traditional double action. Some people call that DASA. It's traditional double action. Uh, anytime you come off of target, you decock.
Yep.
But that takes me back to a double action trigger. And if I have to re-engage, yes, it does.
Learn how to work that trigger.
It also instills that every time that muzzle comes off of the target, you decock the gun and you never shove a cocked, unlocked
Yes.
pistol into your holster and give yourself extra holes.
Yep.
But yeah, I'm going to trust Dave Spalding because I don't think that he would say something that he can't back up. But I'll say I've not seen the actual data on this. But I'm going to trust Dave. Dave talked about, one of the reasons going to the TDA when agencies did, when they were making the revolver to automatic transition, was there was all this fear of we've had these 12-pound double action triggers and guns. If we go to something like a 1911, we'll have an increase in negligent discharges. So we'll go with these TDAs.
Yeah.
Well, negligent discharges did increase, but it was always on the cocked guns being put back in the holster without having, and
So
decocked.
two things on that.
Yeah.
The largest sheriff's department in the country.
Hmm. Is that something like a sheriff's office?
Yeah, no, they call themselves a sheriff's department. I came
Well,
from a sheriff's office.
that's
It weird. Don't try to figure it out.
yeah,
Just work with me on this one.
yeah.
They went from DA revolvers to DA semi-autos
Uh-huh.
to striker fired guns.
Hmm.
Percentage wise, they had a very high increase in NDs when they went from the DA semi autos to the striker fired semi autos. and the Office of Inspector General report on it for that
Mhm.
agency talked about a culture of not adhering to Rule 3
Yeah.
because they'd always had long trigger pulls,
Yeah.
which is one that's kind of fascinating to watch, right?
Mhm.
I need to get my hands on one so I can do a proof of concept with it. I want
Yeah.
to get a DA only Beretta,
Mhm.
send it down to Langdon,
Yeah.
have the slide cut for an optic,
Mhm.
have Langdon's trigger work done on it to where we get about an 8 pound DAO trigger on it
Mhm.
with a light. Right now, I still
Yeah.
see the value of a light on a duty pistol
Mhm.
for law enforcement.
Yeah.
Um, but I think that would address a lot of the concerns, right? It would be a
Yeah.
longer trigger,
Yeah.
while heavier than the striker fired ones. It's not unmanageably heavy,
Mhm.
right? And it's one trigger for everything.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's still something I want to play with proof of
Yeah.
concept.
Yeah. I could get on board with a good DAO trigger.
Right? When you're in the picture that was taken at TACON some years back when
Mhm.
Ernest had my Beretta, and one of
Yeah.
the conversations was like, "What are you going to do with this?" Because he was trying to figure out how light he could go on the trigger.
Mhm.
And it's about a 7.25, 7.5 pound. I would go higher than that. So that's why I'm like
Yeah.
8 for
Yeah.
reliability. Not that I've had
Yeah.
issues, but
Yeah. Yeah. I could definitely get on board with a very good double action only trigger.
I think for what the vast majority of law enforcement does,
Mhm.
which is not hostage rescue headshots.
Yeah.
And yes, I know the video from Santa Ana where a patrol car
Yeah.
just had to do a hostage rescue headshot.
Yeah.
But for a lot of people managing,
Mhm.
a clean DAO trigger that you can
Yeah.
learn to shoot is going to let you do those things, but it is
Yeah.
also going to make managing folks a lot
Yeah.
easier for all involved.
Yeah. One last thing on that DA trigger thing. If I remember correctly from that Inspector General report, when they went to emphasizing and training finger off the trigger, the number of NDs reduced dramatically.
Yes.
So it had
Yeah.
nothing to do with the trigger. It was the way it was being used.
Right. Well, yeah, and I'm
Yeah.
not blaming the trigger
Yeah.
on it. It's
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
it's one of those things we have to be aware of, right, and move all this stuff in.
Yeah.
So when we start talking
Yeah.
about safeties, we have to know how to use them and work them, right?
Yeah.
When we use short light triggers, we have to know how to use them.
Yeah. Uh, One last quick segue off of that. New York Police Department led a recruit class. I remember there being headlines that they were going to let them have a standard Glock trigger instead of the New York ones or whatever. Did you hear anything about? Was there any?
Not heard any end result stuff.
Okay. All right. How can people find your stuff? What do you have coming up?
So cougarmountainsolutions.com, Cougar Mountain Solutions on Facebook. On
Mm-hmm.
Instagram, it's Cougar underscore mountain underscore solutions, or the
Mm-hmm.
backup account is the whole one word.
Yeah.
Also, same with AmericanCop.com for the magazine. Had a couple agencies cancel low light instructor classes due to budget issues. So it looks like the first Cougar Mountain Solutions kind of teaching of the year, unless I some of the folks that have recently like stuck their head up come through, will be TACCON in April.
Yeah.
A lot of trips to the Pacific Northwest this year. So I'm doing Idaho and Washington in May, doing a 2 week run through Washington in July with classes. Those are all on the website. Let's see, Thunderstick Summit in September, Cognitive Conclave in October, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a few other classes. My calendar's pretty open for a lot of things, both instructor development and end user stuff. So reach out and let
Mm-hmm. All right. Yeah, folks, the Cognitive Conclave will be Eric here, myself, the aforementioned John Hearn,
me know. Yeah, that guy.
and John Holston in to come in. And John doesn't want to have any kind of position of responsibility over the three of us. So he likes to say he's professor emeritus. I like to tell you he's our faculty advisor, but he
Or
rejects
the
that.
old guy.
Yeah. But there'll be the four of us doing a round robin. That's the last weekend in October, which I think is the 25th and 26th. But whatever the last weekend in October is, that will be at Red Hill Range in Martin, Georgia. We do not yet have a registration link up for that. That's forthcoming. All four of us are presenting at TACCON, so I suspect we'll sit in the lobby of the hotel one night and hash out um, some of the final details on that. But that is forthcoming. TACCON's the only thing that and Cognitive Conclave I've got definitively scheduled for 25, well, except for the Rangemaster reunion, which is the first weekend of December in
And
Nashville.
I will be at Mead Hall that weekend.
Yeah,
Bill reached out. Oh, he's having me back at Mead Hall first weekend of December for
yeah,
shotgun and optics.
yeah. I hope to have some stuff, but I gotta tell you, teaching all day, every day, some of this other stuff that's going on, peopling on the weekends would be kind of a challenge right now. So I haven't definitive locked stuff in, but I need to. I need to get some courses out there. But well, Eric, thank you for coming in and being on the show tonight.
I'm glad I was able to throw myself in on the sword, right? Or just on the bus while everybody else took four steps back. And besides, it
Yeah.
kept me from having to watch that thing with Taylor Swift that's on right now.
Speaking of, I quit watching the NFL when all that stuff over the kneeling was taking place.
Mhm.
Now, understand, I was not bothered by the players kneeling. I really didn't care about that. What got me to quit watching was the wall to wall coverage of it. Like you turn on the news the next day and they're talking about which players kneeled, which didn't. You're watching a game and they would break away to another stadium to show players kneeling there. And it's like sports is supposed to be entertainment, which is supposed to be a break from reality. And if you're going to turn my entertainment into more politics, I'm going to step away from it. And I said, the only thing that would bring me back would be a Redskins versus Chiefs Super Bowl. Those were always my two favorite teams. And then they went and screwed that up, and the Redskins don't exist anymore.
Yeah.
And I'm related supposedly to Sammy Ball, or Sam Ball, as he preferred to be called. He was a Redskins great quarterback, and so my great uncles insisted that I be a Redskins fan. And I thought this year, because
Yeah.
I see the headlines and stuff in the mornings like, we're getting close to Commanders versus Chiefs. Is that going to technically? I don't know. And then,
We had Niners season tickets for 20 years,
yeah,
right? Seats in the South End Zone. Uh,
yeah,
Gave them up when they moved down to Levi Stadium.
yeah,
Then the whole Kaepernick kneeling
yeah,
garbage came up. And the fact that the league didn't squash the behavior.
yeah,
Like it's the national anthem, boys and girls. Either wait in
yeah,
the locker room or stand on the field and
yeah,
display appropriate respect. Right.
yeah,
I still can't come back to watching pro ball
yeah,
just because of it.
yeah.
But again, I think that was because we had season tickets for so long that it was a
Mhm,
family thing to go to the game,
mhm,
siblings, dad,
yeah,
stuff. So
yeah. Of course, growing up where I did, uh, yeah, we got the Falcons every Sunday, but
mm,
yeah, there's really no hope there. Um, but my father was an old Baltimore Colts fan, because when he was growing up in the exact same location, the Falcons didn't exist. And the closest NFL team to us then was the old Baltimore Colts, and Johnny Unitas was the quarterback. And so
yeah,
he grew up watching them.
The Raiders summer camp was in my hometown.
Yeah.
They always had it at
Hmm.
big fields behind one of the hotels on the south
Yeah.
side of town. So you would ride your bike over, climb the fence, and watch it. And then they did
Yeah.
family days at the junior college. They'd come out and do one Saturday during the
Hmm.
summer. But Davis moved them south, and it was like, okay, now we're Niners fans.
Yeah.
It's just,
Yeah.
I think I've just been through enough of that. Like, I'll be a
Yeah.
baseball fan now and
Yeah.
hockey.
It was funny. He was a Colts fan. And of course, then when Don Shula ended up going to the Dolphins, Daddy kind of liked them because Shula was down there, because he watched him so much with the Colts. And then my mother used to laugh about how I would stay back in my room watching the same game that Daddy was watching in the man room. And if my team did something good, I'd run up the hallway to taunt him. And if his team did something, he'd run down the hallway to taunt me. And that was what she used to love, watching that on Sundays. Now, college football, we were pretty much in line, but NFL football, no, not at all. Not at
I
all.
get it.
We could agree on the Chiefs when Joe Montana came to the Chiefs.
Okay.
He
I
kind of
can see
partially
that.
agreed with me on that. Um, he really liked Phil Simms of the Giants, and so he pulled for them as long as Simms was coaching for him. I mean, was playing for him.
Yeah.
But you know, it just is what it is. Hell to the Redskins. Joe
Uh,
Gibbs was the greatest coach ever.
is that
Yeah,
because of NASCAR?
yeah. Well, you have to include that. 3 Super Bowls and how many NASCAR championships? Yeah, the guys won.
I'm not arguing. I'm just asking.
Yeah. Oh, and just you look at his 3 Super Bowls with 3 different quarterbacks, 3 different offensive philosophies based on the skill sets of the players he had.
And to be able to
Whereas,
do that, change your offensive philosophy to your
yeah,
player, not change your players to your philosophy.
right. And you look at some of the other like so-called great coaches, is because they had a great quarterback along with them, and once that quarterback was gone, they didn't.
And I'm not bagging on NASCAR because my company is named after a terrain feature on a NASCAR track.
Yeah, and I know there's people throwing things at the radio and computer screens right now, like, what on earth are they talking about? We don't do sports ball on this show. But hey,
We are.
here we are. Coaching is coaching.
Yeah. And that was the thing with Gibbs when you brought that up,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like being able to adapt what you're teaching
yeah,
to the student you have.
yeah,
It's not
yeah,
just this is the way it's done.
yeah,
Here's ways to get you and you to the same
yeah.
point.
When he was an assistant coach under Don Coryell, who was like the first big pass happy coach in the NFL, and they had quarterbacks that could sling the ball over the place. The whole offense was called Air Coryell.
Okay.
Well, Joe Gibbs was part of all of that.
Okay.
And then he comes and gets the head coaching job at the Redskins, and he's got Theismann who could sling it, but he had this running back named John Riggins.
Right.
And, he had that ground and pound philosophy, and then they developed the one back offense because a fullback could not block Lawrence Taylor, defensive end with the Giants. So, okay, let's put a tight end in the game instead of a fullback. And because he's bigger, we'll put him on Taylor.
Yeah.
And the whole philosophy of the one back offense and John Riggins came out of that. Well, Theismann breaks his legs, he's gone. Well, now we got to look around and, okay, here's the quarterback we got. Here are the players we got. Let's develop a system around them. He did that 2 more times and won the Super Bowl. It's pretty impressive that he was so adaptable and could win with whatever players you had. And then he comes back under the worst owner of all time, Daniel Snyder, and even gets a Snyder owned team to the playoffs twice with Jay Schrader as his quarterback.
There's a
Okay.
name I haven't heard in a while.
Yeah. The man has got to be the greatest coach in the history of coaching. And then he goes and wins all those NASCAR championships too. So uh, you got to give the man credit. And so studying what he did and apply it to whatever you do.
Hell of a takeaway.
There you go. So I guess with that, we probably ought to turn it off because people quit listening about 10 minutes ago anyway. Super Bowls. Yeah. All right. Eric, thank you for your time tonight. And to the audience, thank you for choosing to spend your time with us.